It's an exciting time that we live in. Some of you might be saying, "What? It's crazy." But you know what? That's what's so exciting about it. You never know what you're going to get. You are listening to Prepper Talk Radio. We are the podcast for the prepared. We're the radio for the ready-minded. And we got Scott, Shane, and Paris in the house. How you doing, brothers?
Good. I know what you're going to say, Paris. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
That's why it's exciting to start the show that way, because everybody's expecting you to just jump right in the intro, but then you don't, and it's like, what? Like you're living the principle, bro. I love it.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Heck yes. I love it. Well, guys, we're going to get into some latest breaking news, some crazy things in the world. What to worry about? Really not a whole lot, but what to be aware of more. And solutions in today's episode. Want to remind you that if you're without power, you're also without light. So check out our friends over at devosoutdoor.com. You can use the code PTR 3.0. That's PTR as in Prepper Talk Radio 3.0, because we've got 3 hosts, guys. What's up? And you guys are our family. So you get 10% off anything you check out over there. We love their hands-free Light Ranger. It is super extendable. It's almost like having a whole new light in your house because you can telescope that sucker way up high. Great also for camping, and it is the season, guys. If you're not getting out camping and practicing your skills, you're missing out. So check that out. You get 10% off over at devosoutdoor.com. Guys, what the heck? What's going on? Like FBI new terror update? Tell me all about it.
It's a bad thing when you have to say what the heck every single day, right? Like what? It used to be, maybe once a month, every couple of months, and now it's like every day. What the heck?
Well, it's funny because my 5-year-old repeats that phrase.
Oh yeah,
all the time, randomly. What the heck? And you're like, it's my fault. Or you got to be kidding me. He's 5. You got to be kidding me. I'm like, who are you talking to? Anything out of left field.
What are you
got to
referring
be kidding me. That's how I feel about the world. Like, you got to be kidding. Like, what? Really? That's what you're going to do? Yeah. So many other better options, and this is how we roll. Let's roll. Let's find out. So, FBI, freaking bad indications.
Yes, FBI. So yeah, 2 particular warnings that I heard about recently. One today, I think one was yesterday. Let me get there. One yesterday was the FBI director warns the U.S. should be worried about Chinese hacking capabilities, in particular, cyber attacks. So that is a current warning from the U.S. government, FBI, U.S. government. And then the one today was that the FBI issues red code warning over coordinated terror attacks launching on U.S. soil. And if you think about, okay, when was the last warning that the FBI issued? It was before the terror attack in Russia, right? So they didn't communicate that directly to the Russian government. It was kind of in a non-conventional way, and so they got a lot of criticism for that, as well they should. And so, like you say, Scott, don't be worried, but be aware, right? Mm-hmm. Will we actually see anything? We don't typically, right? Somebody announces something and then nothing happens. Like the eclipse, right? Oh, so much to do about it. And yes, the locals need to have some concern about all the people coming in, but that's the extent that I'd be concerned about it, right? Just staying home, staying away from traffic. That's what I do anyway, right? But with these 2, and more than this, I've personally seen a lot of. Do I sound good, guys? Do I sound all right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you sound great.
I don't sound so good. Okay, all right, cool. No, I've seen a lot of noise online about. Of course, we saw the 911 system go down in 4 states. South Dakota, I think, almost completely. And I think we're seeing a lot behind the scenes that corporations are not talking about because it'll hurt the business, right? I know for my particular business, if my internet connection went down, there's almost nothing I could do. I wouldn't. I could make calls. I could go visit customers, but that's really about it. I couldn't do quotes. I couldn't do much of anything.
I was just going to say there's a blessing and a curse about having the world news at our fingertips. Yes. And, for years, before the internet gave us this collective connectivism, we basically kind of stuck to whatever was in our local area, and no big deal.
Mhm.
We didn't know that 911 was down in 4 states unless we were in those states. We didn't know that Russia was getting this and Ukraine was getting that. We didn't know that, we didn't know what was bombs going off here. We didn't know all that stuff. So we didn't have the anxiety. I feel like part of the blessing of having the information is that we can be aware, because it's just, I get the idea that if it's happening in China, if it's happening in Russia and Ukraine, some of these places that we're seeing, it might come here next. And so it's good to be aware as it proceeds through the world and we're ready. But at the same time, it's a curse to me in that there's so much fear and anxiety being generated from it, that instead of enjoying life in our own little area and just realizing, hey, you know what, I'm okay. I got food. I got money in the bank. I got a good job for now. Hopefully you're also getting some side hustles, because jobs to me are, I mean, if anybody knows what I teach, you got to have more ways than one to make money, because you can't count on it. But that's the idea, is that, we just get so much inundation and distraction that I think we get a little bit of anxiety. I do anyways. Personally, I get a lot of anxiety. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to save the world. And my wife's like, what do you mean you got to save the world? We're cooking dinner, like in our house, like, you know what I mean? Take your kid to the voice lessons. Like, okay, yeah, I'm worried about saving Russia and Ukraine, and I got to worry about surviving traffic to the voice lessons. You know what I mean? What I really need to worry about is what's going on in my own family, my own life. So that's where just perspective. That's all. That's really what I'm saying right now.
I think that's a great point. Perspective. Like, we can get inundated with news, right? The news feed is so fast and so furious and so false so often, right? It's there to propagate fear. And it's easy to get sidetracked on life and get anxious about every little thing going on because the news is hitting you all the time. That's why it's so good to disconnect. That's why, Utah Mike, if the internet goes out, I'm good for a few days, like celebrations, right? I love disconnecting so that I can actually have peace. And so there's times where I'll just completely disconnect and not care. And if something happens, it happens. Oh, well. And I think we need to get a little bit tougher mentally and emotionally, so that not every little thing creates anxiety in our life. Like my daughter, super anxious. She's going to turn 7 next week. And honestly, she started pulling out this line just the other day. I'm at my alert level. I need you to stop talking to me because my alert level is too high. My anxiety is through the roof. And I'm like, you're 6. Like, she heard her cousin who has an anxiety issue, who's a teenager, say it. So now, what is she doing? She's repeating what she hears.
Well, communication that's excellent. That's excellent communication, though. That's good for her, though, a little bit.
Well, she walked out of the room and giggled.
That's funny. That's
so
awesome.
That's not real communication. That's manipulation.
Good point. Good point.
That's wrapping dad around the finger and then smashing your hand into the wall, because that's where dad is.
Speaking of manipulation, the FBI and the FBI, by the way, one of the things that I find is crazy is that I know a lot of this people out there, if you're listening to other podcasts, Dan Bongino, there's even James O'Keefe, a lot of these guys out there talking about, in fact, we're going to talk a little bit later about the owner of BlackRock, but they're talking about how the FBI is targeting them instead of these threats, these real threats. Yeah, sure. So great. FBI, great for you. You issued a warning about a terrorist attack on our land. Well, who do you consider to be those terrorists? Like, what is the warning? Who are you warning us against? Are you actually warning us against the invasion at the border? Are you actually warning us against real Chinese, not the ones that you hired? Are you warning us against real threats, or are you warning us against the mom who showed up at the PTA meeting and said, hey, my son's a boy? You know what I mean? Like, what are you warning us against a little bit? And it just boggles my mind. And one of the things that I hear a lot of conservatives saying is, like, if whoever's the next one in particular says, if Trump gets into office, or if he says, if I got into office, the first thing I'd do is dismantle the FBI and revamp and restart that thing,
and the CIA,
because there's just so much corruption. Seems like every time you turn around, it's like, what the heck? And that's part of, by the way, the whole false flag situation is they have to warn us before they pull something off. And so when I hear about a cyber attack from China, I'm almost like, well, are you blaming them for something you're going to do? You know what I mean?
Well, and it's like there's so many different people to point their finger at, but it's like we gave the Russia's greatest hacker back 3 years ago for a prisoner exchange
trade,
and it was like why did we just do that? And then what happened the next 8 months? Infrastructure issues, attacks like crazy. Like, yeah, we're making ourselves, we're basically victimizing ourselves and then setting up a bully to victim us some more, right?
Yeah, well, that's another thing that that happened this week as well. I think what's called Article 702, which allows the FBI, CIA to continue to spy on the U.S. citizens. Right? Of course, they don't claim it's for that, but obviously that it's used for that and other nefarious purposes. But that was extended for another year, so woohoo! Right?
Well, and then there's I'm trying to remember which one it was. The TikTok ban, which is actually the $61 million Ukraine bill, right? Which is hidden inside of it. The whole idea of that whole thing is Patriot Act 2.0, while also funding their Ukrainian money laundering system for.
Yeah, a lot of that money is going to stay here in the U.S., go to U.S. contractors,
and making their pockets extremely deep. So it's funny because it's like you look at all these things going on, and it could be very easy to get wrapped up in it. But also, if you just look at the highlights of each one of them, you start seeing a big picture.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, could this bill, we all know that Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the head of whatever that crypto, exchange was, they were laundering money through Ukraine for the Democratic Party to be able to, fund their agenda. And so it's like, wait a minute, now that Sam Bankman-Fried's been ousted, so to speak, who's the next patsy for these guys to run their schemes, their money laundering schemes through? So, to me, I wish we would take some of that money and just put it internally and just really bolster our streets and not our literal streets necessarily, but like the people. We have so much going on in our own country to have to worry about what's going on over there. Like, yes, we need to be aware of humanitarian issues around the world. But when we've got humanitarian issues if my kid is in pain and suffering, I'm not going to take the neighbor's kid to the doctor. I'm going to take my kid to the doctor. And that my neighbor's responsibility to take his own kid to the daggum doctor or pay for his own kid to do whatever needs to be done. Like we can't be, I don't know. Anyways, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. I was also going to say another thing that I've been seeing a lot lately is police departments continue to be defunded. Budgets taken away or receive less funding, and so less ability to have rule of law. So, and then I don't know if I want to go there yet. What happened over the weekend with the vote for this? The bill for the funding for Ukraine and Israel and so forth. Did you guys see that? They're sitting in the I think was it the Senate? Was it where they voted on it and then it was passed and then they waved all these Ukrainian flags.
Yep. Oh, in the house.
In the house. Okay, in the house.
Saturday night.
On Saturday night. I remember that.
When I saw that, it almost made me physically sick.
Well, it shows who they're working for.
Exactly. And what stood out to me, and maybe I'm a little extreme on this view, is that the U.S. is no longer the U.S. I mean, it hasn't really been for a long time, if we really think about it. But this for me, it was a turning point. To wave those flags in there, we are no longer the U.S. We are now bound by those who give us money. I mean,
we are,
and it really has been that way for a long, long time. So I know you guys in the chat would say that's the way it's been a long time, but for me, that just was a signal of some kind to say, you know what, it's over. It is over. Mm-hmm. It's gone. We have, and I hate to say it, and I hesitate to say it, we have no hope of turning this around without extreme measures. Let me say that.
Well, and Webb put in a good comment.
Yeah.
We only see and hear what we are supposed to see and hear, right?
Yeah.
They show us what they want us to see. This has been going on. I mean, what is Operation Mockingbird? Not Mockingbird.
Well, I think Mockingbird. I mean,
Mockingbird,
one of the many.
One of the many programs the CIA's used to control and manipulate. If you look at how many of those groups are actually not operatives, and I'm going to say that because they're actually all in Hollywood, all in the news media. They're authors, they're storytellers. They're manipulating so many of the different facets of our life to create this weird story to try to get us to believe what they want us to believe and see what they want us to see. Just look at any major news operation. How many of them turn out to be operatives? I was watching this fantastic video over the weekend about the Nixon Watergate whole story. And you know who the main writer on that was? Woodburn wasn't his name Woodburn or whatever? He was a former naval intelligence officer that all of a sudden became the top investigative journalist who was given that story on his first day of the job.
Interesting.
Right. We see and hear what we're told to see and hear. And if you look back and research things, you find out, wow, it's a bunch of BS. Does it mean you need to panic and stress? No. You just need to be aware.
And on those same lines that WebDad's saying there is only seeing here what they want us to, it is something I've also, a couple of years ago, it came up that the U.S. government actually announced that, yes, we have information on aliens and UFOs and so forth. And so who was it? One of some president of some, I think of Germany or something, said, yes, there is there is a council, a space council where they visit us, and I'm slaughtering it, but he acknowledged that, yes, people from outer space actually come here and we talk to them and they have plans and so forth. So another thing I see more coming up more now again, or coming back again, is the threat of an alien invasion. Project Bluebeam, right? We've all heard that. We know what that's about, where they can project holograms and such. And that's what the Phoenix Lights was, in my opinion. And,
right.
I think a lot of people have that opinion as well. So that's another thing that is also coming up that was slated for this year, for 2024, that I saw a commentary back probably a dozen years ago. Oh, this fake alien invasion is scheduled for 2024. And another thing just to be aware of, of course it's going to be fake. It will be fake combined with military and whatever to bring in the new world order. I'm sure they have lots of different plans, lots of different ways that they could potentially do this, and they're just watching to see how things play out. Say, okay, let's do this, so let's do that, and to bring this in, to usher this in, to allow the markets to crash, to allow the dollar to crash, and then usher in the new currency and so forth. So I think they have a lot of different things staged and ready to happen. But what will actually happen, who freaking knows?
Yeah, whatever God allows. I was watching a podcast. Yeah. I watched a podcast yesterday about a guy who was talking about programming and obviously TV programming, conditioning on the TV, different things that we can watch. And he was talking about statistically, whenever there's a movie, and we know this from statistics where, somebody commits suicide, it's a big thing in the news, and then all of a sudden suicides shoot up. When he actually referenced I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, the Gone in 60 Seconds movie about, Nicolas Cage, who was stealing cars. He said that he reached out to several police people that he knew, and statistics were that shortly after that, within the next month, car theft went up like dramatically. And so you just watch what's in the movie theaters right now. That's what I'm saying, is watch what's in the movie theaters right now. It's kind of conditioning and programming people to be prepared for something, and or to get them to react and act in a way that is happening. Like, you see all the things that are happening. It's a way to program with a constant barrage of things that we're seeing and having in our brains. It starts to change our worldview, because that's what we're constantly seeing. So that's why it's important, in my opinion, to stay grounded in the Word of God, to stay grounded in prayer, to stay close to good people with minds that are strong. Stay listening to our show. We'll do our best. I mean, we're not perfect, but we'll do our best to keep the correct truth words and energy into the world. But I just thought that was amazing. Like, what's going on in the different. I thought that was a really cool reminder that when they put out programming, it's for a reason, and they're trying to get the masses to react and do something about it. And that was really cool to see. This guy's
And
research on it.
yeah, and you know, obviously, how they knew they were able to program us and figure out that they can actually pull this off. 2020 to 2022, 23, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly how they know. Oh, look what we can do. Look what we can do now, because look what we pulled off those couple of years. It's. I really feel bad. Sorry for those people who still don't see it. It's blatant. It's so obvious at this point.
I just had a revelation that I'm an idiot.
Write it down.
Well, that I was an idiot. Let me. So, do you guys remember in 1989 a movie came out called "Gleaming the Cube" starring Christian Slater?
Yes.
Oh yeah, dude, that was awesome.
Those of you who haven't watched it, it's a skateboarding movie. Tony Hawk made his first movie appearance in that movie. I became a skater for 3 years because of that stupid movie. And I look back in history and I'm like, I never would have become a skater if it weren't for that movie. So we are easily manipulated depending on what we're subjecting ourselves to. So we have to pay attention.
Speak for yourself, Scott. Speak for yourself.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Or Rebecca,
I'm learning from those mistakes, and I'm trying to not let that happen to my kids.
Yeah.
Rebecca makes a good point here. That movie coming out, Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So just be careful. If you go see it, just be careful. There's some things. Another thing that he mentioned actually on that podcast was that if you drink soda and popcorn, it's not healthy for you, and you're more easily manipulated when your body has been poisoned or is under those types of conditions. So if you're eating healthy and you got good energy going through you, you're less likely to be persuaded for those types of things. And so,
Paris, did I see you drinking a soda there during the broadcast?
No, this is BCAAs. So I have.
Okay, all right.
Well, it also goes to kind of what's happening in the political scene. We get gaslit all the time. I know we're going to talk about, we don't have to talk about it right now, but this kind of coincides with what we're talking about right now. But the border crisis that's happening, everybody gets on the news and says, oh no, it's great. Everything's fine. We're doing great. We got it under control.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, wait, are you crazy? Like the guys at the border are like, no way, man. We got tens of thousands of people coming through here. We got all kinds of potential terrorists. Matter of fact, there's so many people. I was watching another podcast about how there's so many military age Chinese people from China. Specifically, this was about China. I'm sure there's from other countries too, but this one was specifically about the Chinese, how they literally have like caches of material. They'll send them here like looking like refugees with nothing, but when they get to the area in South America or Central America, they like have all kinds of gear for them. They have backpacks, clothes, they have all kinds. And then they go to the next country and they have to swap it out. So they look poor again, and they swap it out and they get a whole new outfit, a whole new set of gear. And they literally go from place to place all along this trail where there's maps. They like literally walk into these cities. Oh, here's the map. This is the trail to follow. This is where you need to go. Like it's definitely a coordinated thing. And whoever's coordinating it has enough money to outfit these guys all the way along the road. And that's scary when you think about that. And that was, I think I watched that about 2-3 weeks ago. That was an episode. I watched another podcast.
Well, there's plenty of government agencies that can account for billions or even trillions of dollars. So,
well, and remember we talked a few months ago about like all the missing guns in different states, all the missing ballistic armor in a couple different places. Like those things have been happening over the last 4 or 5 years, right? Well, look at what's going on at the border. We've got all these fighting age men coming in from countries like China, like Rwanda, like Venezuela, and it's interesting because the Texas border, they went from 2.4 thousand people crossing a day and getting caught. That's just the percentage getting caught, down to I think it was like 400 a day, because Governor Abbott and the National Guard and his solution cracked down on the border. Right? They took over a 50 acre park, kicked the U.S. government out of it, and they're like, no, this is our land too. Get out of here. And it's what's interesting is now you look at where the people crossing, they're all showing up in San Diego, causing a huge problem in San Diego.
Wow.
So 85% is how much up San Diego border crossing is right now. That's almost double where it was 3 months ago. So it's a continual problem. It's not going to go away. It's intentional. Be aware. Because then that floods into the other problem of, okay, where are they going? We know they're going to New York. We know they're going to major cities, Chicago. We know they're going to LA, San Diego. They're going to San Francisco. But they're also being housed in a lot of these homes. There's a huge housing issue going down right now. All these homes that should be foreclosing that aren't. And also all these homes that have been bought up by private equity. BlackRock and other groups like that now have these incentives. They can put people in those homes $4,000 a month per person. Right? That's just in the state of New York. They passed a bill. And so who's making all the money now? BlackRock and the groups like them. So you've got to be aware of these things, but you've got to also make sure you're focusing on your family, your community, and your preparedness. Want to remind our good friend in here, Rebecca. She actually sent me a message on TikTok. Thank you, Rebecca. We talked about that at the beginning of the hour. We talked a little bit about who are the threats that the FBI and the Department of Justice and who they're saying are the threats. Yeah, they're calling it patriots. They're calling it the locals, and they're saying we're as big of a problem as anybody else, or bigger. So keep it secret. Keep it silent. Don't tell everybody all your plans.
Quick commercial.
I don't know what we're doing on this podcast right now. We're just telling everything.
Yeah. Quick commercial for the show. We're so close to having some benchmarks for our channel on monetization. So I feel like there's a little bit of throttling that we're getting on YouTube and other places.
No
so
doubt.
if you want to help us out, make sure you share the show with as many people as you can. Specifically tonight, like and hit the like button for sure. Throw some comments on the show afterwards, because the more that they see that, the algorithm kind of kicks that in. And then share the show with as many people as you can on your socials, on your feeds and stuff like that. The more traffic we can get to have people, and then join our Facebook group. Let people know that we have a community we're trying to build, that we can talk and shoot information back and forth. And if you guys have a topic that you really want us to talk about coming up, we'll throw it on the calendar, especially if we get a lot of people that are interested in that same topic. So
yeah,
quick
absolutely.
commercial.
So one of the next things I want to bring up too is we've talked about this a lot last year. It's still an issue. The world does literally stand on the brink of unprecedented famines, right? If you look over in Palestine, they've got problems. If you look in Iran, there's too much water, right? They're cloud seeding. Have you guys seen those news reports? Well, our cloud seeding went a little awry, and now we have too much water and we're flooding everybody. In the United States, though, that isn't cloud seeding. It's, guys, you got to stop using all these carbon emissions because it's causing global warming, and that's what's causing this rain and flooding in places that shouldn't have rain or flooding, right? Pay attention.
Well, and the latest I've heard on that cloud seeding is that some group had basically determined, well, it actually wasn't cloud seeding. It was something else. It's just not necessarily possible to get that kind of precipitation just from the cloud seeding, which is absolutely crazy. If you guys have seen those videos, it's insane the type of the rainfall they got in those areas. It's unbelievable.
Well, it goes back to God uses the wicked to punish the wicked.
There you go.
Right. So he's going to take any horrible efforts of the wicked and magnify those to punish those who will not repent. It's like, hello, people.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness.
There's so many signs and things that are, if you're watching, like Christine, you were saying, Paris, I wanted to comment on this earlier is, yes, I get in the same boat as you, Paris. I get kind of depressed and a little anxious. So like, holy cow, look what's going on. And then you go out in nature and you forget, and the world is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's peaceful, and like, I like this. I don't know if I want to surround myself with this, but
And we're not as enemy as the world wants us to, or the media wants us to think. Like everybody,
absolutely. Yep.
the media wants you to think that your next door neighbor is going to kill you if you walk out on the front lawn, and they're not. We're all going to collaborate and coordinate and work together, and we need to kind of counteract that. And that's part of the whole idea, is that, you know, when you're aware of what's going on, you can't think of people as idiots all the time. You have to realize that, hey, I need to work together. I'm on this earth with these people. We're all on this journey together. Let's try to make it the best as we possibly can for one another, you know? And, you know, to use the scriptures, if you love one another, you know, Jesus taught that as one of his big mantras. And, anyways, I totally agree with you. We gotta learn to remember to love one another. And then, it's important to be aware of what's going on in the world. It's important to know that, hey, you know what, there's some, and maybe I don't know if either of you have more information on this, but I did hear something along the lines of sorry, I don't have all the details. I just saw the headline and I didn't look into it as much as I should have before the show, but it was something about nuclear weapons. Like some of these countries are like getting their nuclear weapons in place. And I don't know if it was United States or if it was another country, but I think Tucker Carlson was even talking about the idea with that. He was on Joe Rogan's show not too long ago, talking about, why are we even considering nuclear weapons? I mean, realistically, like, think about what those things do to an area, to a people, to a civilian. Like, it's horrible, you know, and that's what's the problem is that it's like this whole idea about my dad's truck's bigger than your dad's truck. Oh yeah, well, my dad's truck bigger than your dad's truck. So we build up our dad's trucks all the way to the point where now we're dropping nuclear bombs on people. It's like, why are we producing extinction level event material when we should be working on building each other up, not destroying it? That's what I'm saying.
Talk about not living in the real world. These politicians and those who run the world, they are completely disconnected from us, the real people, and from the real world. They live on their own, who knows what to call it, but they are completely delusional and psychopathic, and not even getting there.
Well, dude, practical comment right now, dude. I want to put it up on the screen, but I don't.
It's
practical.
Go
read it.
100% right. If you're listening to the podcast later, get on over to YouTube, because we got some of the best conversation that we've had in a long time, and some comments that we dare not say, but we absolutely want to read. So hop on over to our YouTube. Easy to find us, Prepper Talk Radio. We're right there. Go to our lives, and you can watch this and read everything. It is fantastic. We've got to figure out a way to build better communities, right? Eliminate threats by getting them to join your team. The world's going to tell you all the time, everyone's your enemy. That's how they keep you scared. That's how they keep you isolated, right? But as soon as you stop that isolation, you find like-minded people, like our group in the chat, right? Then you find safety. You find safety in numbers. You find safety in like mindsets, theologies, values, work ethics, goals, and skill sets, right? We all have different things that we're going to be better at, but we're better individually when we come together, because then we have an opportunity to serve, and service brings us together in strength. So it's funny because, you talk about nukes. I always jump over to the ejmap.org and look at their nuclear operating facilities all over the U.S. and see what's going on, right? We live in a place right now where we're blessed. We don't have anything nearby, right? Nothing really to worry about. But we've also got we're in the blast radius if something happens with our good friend
military bases around here. Oh, we lost Paris.
We lost Paris. But I was going to say, if you go up north to Yellowstone, the active volcano area, right? If that goes sideways, we go under. But we've also got, Hill Air Force Base.
You get covered, and all the military bases. But I went off track a little bit when I was commenting. I just remembered what else I wanted to say. Yeah, about signs. There's so many signs that I personally am seeing that are adding up to me, that make sense to me. First of all, this week what happened Monday, Tuesday, and today too. Gold and silver just got shellacked, just got smacked down, right? And it was about time, if you think about it, and you're looking at the charts and you're like, okay, there's been a big run up and now it needs to take a breath and pull back a little bit. Okay, that makes some sense. But also, at the same time, what the U.S. Treasury just came out, or the Fed, saying that the Federal Reserve came out saying, oh, we're going to start up our buyback program, our Treasury buyback program, which we haven't done for 20 years. And we only did twice in the last century, back in 1929, 1930, and then in the early 2000s. Oh, because it will help make our system more robust. You mean there's a liquidity crisis? That's what you mean. That's what's happening right now. It's not a good thing that, we need the system needs more currency, needs more dollars, which is crazy to think about. But this is the next step to hyperinflation, is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Is them stepping in, printing more currency and putting it out into the all over the world, not just U.S. There are more dollars outside the U.S. than inside the U.S. And that's where these dollars are going to go, and they're going to come home to roost, and we're going to be, more inflation's coming.
Yep.
It is.
Well, and it's all planned. It's all strategically built out. You talk about war games. They do economic war games. They do social construct war games. They have scenarios that they're practicing and they're rolling out all over the place. And they war game every scenario. And then they put it into practice to see what happens and how we react and how far they can get away with things. So make sure you're fighting back in the sense of standing up for your rights, right? Maintaining your rights.
Know who your representatives are, and know who your representatives are, and send them emails or letters on a regular. Even phone calls are good.
Well, and the more free you are, meaning self-reliant, the more self-reliant you are, the less they can do to you, right? The less you need the system that they've created and taught you and brainwashed you into believing you need. The less you need that, the less effect they can have on you, the less stuff they can take away from you. Because what's cool about the world is you can rebuild, you can start over, you can keep going.
You can create your own space so you can unplug from it all, and then not have to expose yourself to all this news. Because you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to know. At a certain point. That's my goal.
Well, it's funny because talking about the superinflation. Sorry, Paris, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a quick commercial for a couple episodes from now. We've got a guest coming on who is really into the food processing, food distribution world, and he's going to talk about some things that he's doing to gather farmers and ranchers together to help us find local foods, kind of like just local, ranchers, local farmers. And so we're going to have a chance to talk about that, which is another big problem in the world right now, is the food supply and the supply chain and the food. So stay tuned to our channel, subscribe so that you don't miss it. And because that's coming up here in the next week or so.
Cool.
Awesome. Nice. Well, I was going to say economic things. I'm seeing the comments go nuts with it, like gas prices, right? I went out to eat last night. We don't do it very often anymore, but we went out to eat, and I went to Wendy's. So I'm going to drop Wendy's on throw them under the bus. I had their Dave's Classic, and it used to be this big juicy burger. And now, have you guys been to Wendy's in a while? Do you remember the little Junior Bacon Classic, the little junior burgers?
That's usually what I get, honestly, when I go. It's just
the big burger is now on the junior burger patty size, bun size, serving size. And the price is up 30% from last year.
Wow.
So, and I know they were going to try to do that surge pricing, but guys, like everything out there is trying to gouge you financially.
And the shrinkflation as well.
Shrinkflation. The less you need out there, the better, right? Walmart just came under attack, which, well, they should. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but their meat is overweighted. So they'll list a 2-pound thing of chicken as being 6.8 pounds and sell it for $18 instead of what it should be sold for, which is like 9, right? Or 7. They've been busted. People all over social media are finding it. Here's what you can do. When you go to the store, double check by taking it and measuring it at one of the independent scales. Head over to the produce section. Double check it. Make sure you're not getting ripped off.
Yeah.
That number one. Number two, you can contact, because there's $10,000 fine for every time they do this wrong. Go to nist.gov. This is the U.S. Department of Commerce. I know. Don't trust the government, but hey, here's a way we can use them, right? The Bureau of Weights and Measures will open an investigation, and they are taking video content from social media and validating it.
Wow.
And finding all these places. One guy took it to the manager, and the manager was like, "Oh," and you could kind of tell that he's like, "What? I don't think I want to work here right now. I don't know how to deal with this." Right? So, raise your own meat. Right? If you're in a place where you can't raise your own meat, check this out. Our friends over at survivalfrog.com, you can get some canned, cooked, tasty, delicious meat stores for 25 years. You can get it on a discount using the code PrepperTalk. Get over there and get some. I've got some. I love it. I've cracked open every can. They got chicken, they got beef. So shredded chicken, shredded beef, and ground beef hamburger. Right? It's super easy. It's super convenient. You don't have to rehydrate it. Also, it's easy to raise quail, and most neighborhoods have no restrictions against quail.
And right. I am no good at this. My dad used to go take us deer hunting as kids. I never was able, don't have the stomach for it. I know it's something I need to learn. So what I have done is got to know my neighbors where I have my other property, and it's all beef. It's all beef out there. It's ranching. I got 200 head around my property right now. And so that's my plan anyway. So I can barter for it. I don't need to do the processing myself. But I was also gonna say a few other signs that have come up to me this week. That obviously you look at what's happened to Tesla in the last couple of weeks, months or so. It's down 55%. And I've got a good friend who's has a lot of those shares, and he's feels pretty bad about it, but he's always very positive. Anyway, that's down big time. They're lowering their prices. Their first quarter was down $2.5 billion in profits, something like that. What else are they going to point to? Oh, another thing that also I heard about this week is that the U.S. has voted and is moving forward towards confiscating the $300 billion that they have frozen in Russian assets. You know what that means? If that actually happens, that's all out freaking war there. Yep. Is if the U.S. actually confiscates that, especially if they give it to Ukraine, that's all out war right there. And then it's not only that, it's the absolute collapse of the U.S. dollar very quickly after that. Countries are not going to trust it. They're going to continue or speed up their process to de-dollarize. And knowing what's been happening, what this Congress has been voting on lately, I don't doubt that they're going to pass this. That they say, yeah, well, let's confiscate it, woohoo, and then wave Ukrainian flags again. It's insanity.
And then go after the domestic terrorists, all the preppers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the people who are just trying to not be bothered, right? And what's funny is there's so many preppers that are Gen Xers, and we want to be left alone, right? When we were kids, we had to drink from the hose. Mom and dad were gone most of the time. A lot of us were latchkey kids, dual working parents. We were left alone, and we had to figure it out on our own. And we kind of got used to that. And the millennials and the Gen Zs, they've been fighting each other, and somehow they've been fighting past us and ignoring us. But it seems like they're starting to pick a lot of fights with the Gen Zs to the Gen Xs, and we want to be left alone, but we've also been in enough fights and scraps that we know what to do. So that's what I classify most preppers as. Even if they're not a Gen X, they want to be left alone. We want to have peace, and we want to enjoy our quality of life. Don't poke the bear. Be that as it may, this conversation, talking about Russia, talking about the banks, talking about the money, one of the things I want to remind you guys as we close out tonight's episode is the shot heard round the world. It was back in Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775, and I'll read this to you. Americans in the Revolution believed that their example would start a chain reaction that would free the oppressed around the world. Americans in the 19th century still believe that as well. So the shot was heard around the world because we believed we had global significance. We have global significance still. Keep going forward. Don't stop prepping. I joked about this the other day on social media. Live by the hashtag Bob FIFO. Have you guys heard that one yet?
Mm.
Bob FIFO. Bug out bag, first in, first out.
Okay.
Right? Always ready. You got your gear, whether you're bugging out or not. Like I'm a big proponent of staying home, but shelter in place. Get your system, keep refilling it, keep restocking it, and get other people around you excited about doing it for themselves. Don't tell them what you have, but show them how to do it. So, any final thoughts for tonight? I want to thank everybody that's on the live, but what do you guys got?
Well, I think what WebDad said here, and I totally agree, is that if there's anything you feel like you need to do and you're holding off for some reason, but you have the means to do it, just do it. That's something I've really been focusing on. Is I have savings. I'm pulling out of savings to get things done instead of, letting it sit there and give me warm fuzzies. And there's things I got to do, and I'm just doing them. I'm just doing them. So I totally agree, WebDad. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would just say definitely be aware of what's going on in the world, but don't get panicked. Don't be Chicken Little running around with your head like a chicken with like a chicken with its head cut off.
Yeah.
Realize that we do need to be aware. We need to act locally and think globally. So be aware of what's going on, because at some point you may have to act on it. But until you do, don't worry. Cross that bridge when you come to it. But be prepared, be ready, stay ready-minded, and continue to strengthen and bolster yourself, your skills, and your family in all areas. Emotionally, spiritually, physically. And when you're ready, when an event happens, if you live a ready life, when an event happens, no matter what it is, you'll always be ready.
Amen. Well, thank you guys for participating tonight. It's been a fun and lively conversation. The chat has been off the hook. Thank you, everyone who's been in there tonight. We've seen some new faces, some old faces, and some fantastic phrases. So between now and the next episode, I want you guys to stay focused, stay frosty, and more than anything, keep that head on a swivel. You are our swivel heads, the team of prepared. You are not scared. Thanks for listening to our episode tonight. Thanks for being part of the family. Until next time, stay ready-minded.
See you next week.
See ya.